Hey guys, Pat Ryerke here, also known as the Patriarchy, kicking social justice ass well into the year, and especially feminism. You know, I really hate feminism more than anything. Besides the bullshit virtue signaling and the lies and all that crap, but it's the pseudoscience. Feminism, in a lot of ways, has kicked off the social justice pseudoscience so bad. Besides the gender fluid trans bullshit, but the feminists, they just make shit up when they start talking about things. And their only basis, like Lacey Green when she talked to Blair White, it's like, well, in a psychology class or a sociology class, it's like, well, suck my ass. This article from Everyday Feminism, an awful website. I'd argue the worst website on the internet. Just fucking awful. All a bunch of hack female writers, terrible. They have this fucking school for toxic whiteness where you pay $100 for them to teach you how to not be racist. I've covered this site a bunch of times. It's just cringe. Every article's every cliche thing. Bigotry, xenophobia, trans rights, gender fluid, white privilege. And it's always they even attack white feminists on here because white feminism is bad. You're only a good feminist on this site if you're a black feminist. So you know what we always say when feminists bitch at us? We're like, well, hey, not all men do these things, and a lot of the stuff you're saying is bullshit, and I can make a counter argument for privileges that women get that men don't get, and vice versa. If they don't want to hear that, they'll go, well, those biases exist, but women suffer more. And it's always some unhappy woman telling you this, and then telling you that you're unhappy and we can fix the world even though they're a miserable woman. It's like, well, I'm pretty happy with myself. I don't really need your help to be happier. Listen to this headline. A reality check for your typical white men aren't the enemy objection. I shared the establishment's article, The White Male Effect is Real and Dangerous to Us All, by Soya Kamli, and a sweet former intern who I really am quite fond of posted the quintessential archetypical not all men argument. I love how she thinks she just has this argument shut all down like, oh, not all men, these typical arguments, this argument that's totally valid, full of male fragility, hurt feelings, and a desire to be loved and respected and validated. No, that's you and feminism. This is somebody criticizing what you're saying is bullshit because it doesn't have evidence. That's the issue. It's you have this backwards. Now, I don't always have the energy to try and educate someone who may or may not willfully misunderstand me the same way they have misunderstood the point of such articles. It's because they don't have a point. None of you agree on anything. You write some bullshit article with no evidence. You really have no evidence for anything you claim. And if there is evidence, it's just bullshit. You take some false equivalency. You take something like there's commercials on TV that do this, thus sexism. You never actually show any scientific, factual evidence that these things exist. But sometimes you feel a glimmer of hope in your heart that white males allies, or white feminists, or non-black people of color, or non-indigenous people of color. Jesus Christ. Yeah, you sound like a really educated, smart person. You sound so smart. We could learn everything from you. You just sound like an amazing person. Will evolve and will become happier, healthier, more self-aware, open, and humble people even when norms prefer we keep our outdated thinking on a pedestal. So you know what outdated thinking is, and you know what makes everyone healthier, happier, self-aware, and open and humble. You know everyone's minds. You know what it's like to be a man in this country or anywhere in the world. I didn't know you could read fucking minds. Here is his comment, split into sentiments that I respond to. Former intern. Speaking as a white male and feminist, reading this article was very frustrating. Good. This means you experienced discomfort with your identity and took personally. That's a first step of engagement. I love that. Like, good, you saw this article that was shit, and you experienced this discomfort because of your whiteness. That's what this cunt's saying. Former intern. It sends the idea that all white males are this uniform cluster of conservatism and misogyny, that as soon as another one of these little monsters is born, they are part of the problem. Only because I've had the pleasure of working with you in person, I implore you to read the article while trying to consider how socialization of a white male and the economic and social nudges move this specific demographic towards a specific mindset. Problem is, your economic arguments don't hold up because it's choices. And socialization, that's a sociology argument. Once again, that's pseudoscience. You have no actual numbers and proof of these things you're saying. You're going to go to social... I mean, this is what she's saying. Look at this. She's saying... I implore you to read the article while trying to consider. I want you to think, not objectively, think the way I want you to, how socialization of a white male, you have to think specifically about a white male, even though I'm a woman, a colored woman, I think this is too. She knows nothing about white people. She's not white. and the economic and social nudges move the specific demographic towards a specific mindset. Yeah, it's weird that you know that, and all the people who disagree with you don't. This is difficult because such nudges are often invisible unless made visible. You mean unless you make them up? You've done nothing to show them. I love that because they're invisible. They're invisible because they're not real. With copious amounts of introspection until you beat them down until they accept your bullshit. With white cis men don't have to go through because the mainstream narrative basically confirms their experiences. Right there. That's her argument, the mainstream narrative. Can you give us more examples? Can you give us some proof? What does the mainstream narrative mean? That's you cherry picking what you want it to be. While the rest of us have to do work to varying levels in order to explain our experiences of society. Okay, so my experience in the society is completely fully realized in the news, the media, art, and everything. They've done every kind of story about me, my life. That makes no sense. That makes no sense. That's impossible. That's stereotyping all white people as the same. What are you talking about? You don't know my life. You don't know how I feel. See also, in 2005, Yale Law School professor Dan Kahan, who introduced the perspective of cultural cognition to the theory, explained the reason white males are less fearful of various risks is that they are more afraid of something else, namely the loss of status they experience when activities symbolic of their cultural worldviews are stigmatized as socially undesirable. Identity protective cognition, or thinking that attempts to maintain and uphold the status quo, is part and parcel of the same phenomenon. Sure. Yeah. This is like that test they do, the cognitive bias test they have at Harvard, where it's a point and click game where you could just lie and make stuff up. They apparently can read your mind and tell if you're racist and stuff, or that if you have some kind of privilege because of society making you feel a certain way. They're telling you think a way because society makes you think that way, yet they don't acknowledge that they could be brainwashed or manipulated by the left or their professors at these colleges with their ideology. They're thinking that this is factual. This is what's so scary about the college, the modern college system, or really college just for a long time now, is that they're run by these just crazy radical regressives, and they want to teach them this bullshit pseudoscience and put them on them without evidence, and they want to just throw it out there, and I don't know why. They want to make this stuff a reality. It just creates chaos. They want to kill Western civilization and all the things that we know are normal. I mean, like some basic shit. Like that men and women are different and they're going to make different decisions, and there's a lot of factors to that. They're just straight up like, nope, it's just because men are sexist. That is a fact. It's like, you can't say that. We gotta meet somewhere in the middle. Former intern. Sending that message is very dangerous, and I think it's a big part of the reason that sexism, racism, and hatred continue to grow and divide us. While I agree there's a problem, pointing the blame at white males is a surface diagnosis and fails to hit the core of the problem. Yes. Her response. What do you think is the core of the problem? Black families not staying together for the most part, affirmative action, welfare, the idea of these social programs to give people things without an incentive to work and thrive in a free market capitalist society, too much control of insurance companies and the big pharmaceutical companies when it comes to health insurance, and also when you go to the hospital and stuff. You know why it's so expensive for all this shit? Because we let it have money. The free market should dictate this and let the prices be dictated by competition, and then everybody could afford health care insurance, because there would be $20 a month health care insurance for everyone. But instead, we want the government to fix it for us. Here's the problem. Here's the core problem. I'll tell you the goddamn core problem. People don't want to work and be individuals. They want a blanket fix for their problems. They want to be put into groups. You are a woman. You are a minority. You think you are oppressed and you need help. You need the government or some utopia to come save you. You need this fix of your life. That's the core issue. The way to fix it is to look at individuals as individuals and be pragmatic and look at the real issues. Like, hey, black people kill more black people than cops are killing black people. Let's fix that issue, and we'll bring crime down, and then we'll probably bring down the death of black people to cops too. Let's look at the bigger numbers. But you're like, no, let's just say racism. So you're not looking at the core issue. You're looking at what you want to be there. The core issues, we can talk about them philosophically or in a debate or something. You don't want to talk about the core issues. She pretends she does. But that's what feminists do. They just pretend they want to talk about things, but they really don't. They always go right back to the same like buzzword point that they're going back to and their lack of evidence. It's just because you don't agree with them. And they'll never budge even a little bit. They're just like, well, I can see why you feel that way, but you're wrong. And it's like, no, you're wrong, moron. That's why you write articles like this, because you're so mad that you keep getting proven wrong. You're trying to write here like this feminist comeback. They do this on the site all the time. They're like, "Hey, we'll show you what to do when some guy tries to put you down on a site," and the responses are terrible. They're like, "That wouldn't stop me at all. I would fucking just double down on my shit after that. I write a fucking essay on their ass." What do you think is the core of the problem? The bigger reason that sexism, racism, and hatred continue to grow and divide us is because they still exist. Their existence is not because of divisiveness. Their existence creates the need for outspokenness about real ways society enforces divides. Can you give us some examples? Okay, here's a former intern. Instead of building walls in ethnic and gender groups as Trump is doing, literally and figuratively, we must constantly breaking down these barriers. We should be teaching our children that despite external appearances, we are all very much the same on the inside and human. I would love to. Part one of breaking down these barriers is being able to point out how they were constructed over time. We must be explicit about the way our identities interact with each other. This is another thing on the left's crazy. Like Trevor Noah with the Tommy Lauren interview, like when she's like, "Well, I don't really see color," and he's like, "It's okay to see color, so I do it." The left is obsessed with skin color and your sex and stuff way more than conservatives are. They are obsessed with your black because they think the system affects your black, so you have to acknowledge that person's blackness, which makes you acknowledge their race. I prefer not to do that. I prefer to not look at black people and think about them being black, but you want me to. That's really weird. It's a weird thing. That's like, hey, look at that gay guy. He's gay. Don't think about anything else but him being gay. Notice he's gay. It's like, why? I don't care if he sucks dick. Being able to see us all simply human is a privilege for those who aren't dehumanized. Bullshit. It's being a basically good human being, you dumb fuck. Are you saying all black people or women and stuff like that don't see people as being human? That is such bullshit. Once again, pseudoscience, no evidence for that. I could disprove that immediately. I'll go find some motherfucking poor person who's had the worst life ever, and they'll see everyone the same, and that'll disprove your argument within 1 second. Bullshit. Bullshit. I have to see individuals being simply human. I love to see individuals being simply human. But by the very virtue of the fact that Trump was elected, that Milo had such an amplification, that the problems of centuries have not been acknowledged, much less fixed, basically tells us that our external appearances are seen, even if we, ideally, would prefer to live in a world where we don't. Because you pushed them! You're the reason Trump got elected, you dumb bitch! Do you not see the issue is you? You are wrong. Our humanity also means we are imperfect. Yeah, no shit, moron. We have eyes. For those of us who have vision, the sensory perception is what the brain uses to make the majority of its judgments. Our society is heavily biased in favor of the visual understandings of things, and my race and gender personally are quite visibly East Asian and femme. It is unavoidable that internalized biases we hold interact with our sensory perceptions. The cognitive bias thing. They take cognitive bias and acts like it actually makes you racist or affects people. If I think a black girl's hot and I want to sleep with her because I find her attractive, which I've found many black women attractive, that doesn't factor in at all. Any of the stuff you're saying doesn't factor in. Her personality factors in, who she is comes into a lot of it, and maybe how she looks when she takes her clothes off. But her being black, it's just because I think she's good looking. It's not because she's black I think she's good looking, just like how I don't think a chick's just hot because she's Asian. And you can have preferences, and that's fine. But there's biases for everything. It's like having a bias to not date fat people because it looks unhealthy. Yeah, of course you're going to feel more comfortable around people that are the majority of where you live. Like, yeah, most people in America are white. But to be fair, your argument for that is that these biases is people like seeing these things all the time and noticing. She's like, but with this wishful thinking of the parts is that wish we were 100% rational beings. You can be a rational being, for the most part. Irrationality doesn't have to control you. It's just a thought process. You don't have to act irrational. You can think irrationally, but you don't have to act irrationally. Like, what you're doing is irrational. You're writing this and this is irrational. You don't have to do that. You can sit down and try and be objective. You can try and work to be better. You cannot be a racist just by the idea of working on getting to know people as people and talking to them and giving them a chance and not assuming stuff about people. A lot of us do that when we grow up. When we become big people, when we grow up and quit being children. I know you think people are all this certain way, even though you have no evidence for it, but okay. If you look at the, wait, what? If you look at the imprecise scrapbooky way in which evolution works, and even, in which evolution works, and even the, embryonic development of the human brain, it's clear that we are by no means illogical machines without cognitive biases that served our survival by ensuring we think as little as possible and autopilot as much as possible to conserve resources. Okay, if you're going to start to get an evolution argument, that's not a good one to get into. That's really not a good one for your argument, because if you're trying to use science, that means every argument you've ever made for trans stuff on here is just bullshit, because there's no science for that. And then any argument you're trying to make about this evolution, it's like, you're talking about evolution and stuff like that, it's like, wait a minute, the way you're trying to use it is pretty fucked up, because then I could just say, well, black people are less evolved, because they come from Africa, and they don't have that background we have, so that's why they commit so many crimes, they're primitive, which I don't think that, but you're trying to say that I have a bias, a cognitive bias, because of how evolution set up somehow that fucks me up, that makes me imperfect, to where I'm racist no matter how what I do. I'm going to live in this, I'm going to benefit from this systemic racism and power structure, and there's nothing I can do about it because of evolution. It has something to do with my biology. So the differences in men and women only matter when you can bitch about it, about you being invalidated, but the differences between men and women and people from different cultures and backgrounds in different parts of the world, that doesn't matter when anyone else brings it up, but it matters when you bring it up. Now, I'm not saying anyone's right or wrong in any of that stuff. I'm not saying anything's true. I'm not a scientist. I'm not saying that shit. But I don't think this woman is either. I'm not claiming to know anything. I'm not trying to come on here and tell you what things are. She's just talking out of her ass. I'm just mocking that. It's like me talking out my ass about all sorts of those things. It's the same thing. It's something you shouldn't do, and you should be mocked for it. Former intern, we should be exemplifying this as adults by pointing out at the toxic belief system, religious and cultural, that teach us to view those different than ourselves as foreigners and enemies. Response, absolutely. Reread the article to see just one example of the toxic belief system, that normative way of viewing what masculinity is, and how that has been rooted in the very way we govern ourselves. Former intern, by pointing out at white males as us at all by pointing at white males as all being rapists and sexist, we make them grow believing that that's really who they are, when really all we are is the choices we make. Stereotype threat is a very real thing. It requires that men become more introspective about their gender, the way society places a different set of expectations on them, and the way society influences the choices we make. They also set a different level of expectations on women, too, that you guys, you're not expected to do as much. I know women think they're expected to do a lot more than men, and that's just not true and shown throughout history. Like, men have to do all the hard fucking shit. All the slaves that were building shit, most of them were men. Most of the guys who died in wars were men. Most of the people that have died for things and shit, it's men. Risk their lives for shit, men. I'm not saying women haven't done great things, but it's funny you just ignore that. Like, yeah, it kind of sucks being a guy. It sucked being a guy for a long time. And then in recent history, and it sucked being a woman, don't get me wrong, it's fucking awful. Guys are like, oh, we need to take care of women, we need to help them. Then you guys get rights in countries like this, in modern countries, in civilized, in Western civilization, and then you bitch about it because you have too many rights. You're like, I have so many rights. I don't have the $1 million job where everybody kisses my ass, so it's sexism. Why don't you go earn that stuff? Why don't you go earn respect? Why do you want it given to you? You're not a princess. This isn't a Disney movie. Spread love, not hate, by encouraging everyone to step into the eyes of others, as this creates compassion towards all. By taking this approach, white males will not feel as though they are the enemy and will try to help and accept others, regardless of race or gender. I agree nearly wholeheartedly with the first sentence, although I think empathy is enough, but it's much harder to carry this out in practice than it is to say, because love itself is much more difficult to foster than we'd like to think. Love requires respect for others, and respect requires equality. Not true. You do not need equality with someone to love them or respect them. That is completely untrue. I do not respect somebody less or love them less because they are poor. You do not need that. Let me read that right. Love requires respect for others, and respect requires equality. I don't know that respect requires equality. I'm not really sure. I mean, how you treat them could be equal, but that doesn't make you equal. I could treat someone equal to me, but that doesn't mean they're equal to me in the world. So that I don't know how that really works. Equality means dignifying others with listening to their lived experiences and realizing that you aren't the center. You are not the focus. The focus is the well-being of those who have been negatively impacted by the attitudes about our varying identities and the ways those attitudes manifest in policy. Yeah, but what if I don't agree with the things they're saying? Am I not allowed to disagree with them? I just have to agree with them because they feel that way? Their emotions and feelings are not invalid, but they're not proof, and they're also not truth. I mean, you have to look at the facts. It's not a fact policy is racist because you think it is. We can argue about that, but I don't think a lot of Trump's policies are racist. You may think that, but I don't think you seem like that educated of a person on civics, or even what you're trying to talk. I don't really know what you're an expert on. What are you talking about? Like, this whole article's like, I'm going to defend this not all men thing, and you're not saying anything. What's your point? So yes, take it personally and take it very seriously when someone has a grievance with an identity you hold, because you also hold the power to shape that identity. But first you need to hear and accept that negative truths about your identity exist, whether or not you yourself want to be associated with those negative truths. Okay, that is the first step to dismantling white supremacy and patriarchy within yourself. Oh, you're not dismantling this patriarchy, baby. In the second sentence about men feeling like the enemy, I understand that you feel that this can make it difficult to want to support the cause of equal rights for those of all genders or none, but the truth hurts when it's not sugar-coated and made more palatable. Oh my god, so men are the enemy. You're a fucking cunt. Holy shit, you're a shitty person. I understand that you can feel this make more difficult for calls, but the truth hurts when it's not sugar-coated. Oh my god. Holy shit, so it's just the truth, huh? That the whites... Oh my god. And what does it say about we are all human argument if at the smallest slight a white man won't feel like helping and accepting others? It means that we are all human only if we don't express things that deconstruct a problematic worldview, thus silencing and taking away our humanity. You're so stupid! Oh my god! I'm having a hard time reading this out loud, and this is so... I mean, this is... Oh... Thanks for your 2 cents, because you've expressed a position that lots of frustrated white men who claim to be allies and feminists agree with. You mean the right one, that you're wrong? And that you're a fucking bitch and you don't care about anyone? Like, you clearly don't like white men. You clearly have an issue with white men. The problem's you. This whole bias thing, you have a bias towards white men. And the white men that don't have a bias towards you, you're pissed at them. So you're telling them, no, you don't get my articles. Let me explain them to you. And it's given me an opportunity to respond, hopefully with resources that will allow you to more deeply understand the lived experiences of women of color in the U.S. You did nothing. This was a very unresourceful article. I got nothing from this. I'm more confused than when I began. This in no way countered any points made about what you're doing is bad. I can make the argument way more, and I think it's been made, that people like you caused the era of Trump and the end of political correctness. The attack on third-wave feminists like you are the problem. Social justice... regressives, language policing, all that stuff. You guys are the problem. Cyberbullying, instead of just turning your computer off, you think you're being harassed when everyone's attacked on the internet. You're the issue. You're the people that have this crazy fucking bias issue. You're snowflakes. That's why we call you snowflakes. You think you're special. You think you should be treated different. And you think you understand things differently than everyone else. And it's hilarious. It's like when a young person thinks they understand like love or something more than an older person who's been married forever, and they're just a dumb young person. They don't get, it's like, oh, they've been through this shit. What they're telling you, they know more. There's wisdom. You're just talking out your ass. You're just talking from your own life experience, that you maybe had some shit experiences with white people or men. So you're like, well, this is what it is, and I'm going to have to explain that. No, this is a terrible article. If you were, honestly, all you did was make your intern guy look like he was getting red-pilled a little bit, and then you brought him back into his cuckness. You've just hurt this man. This man could have went somewhere. He was learning. He was watching some Sargon or something, you bitch. You took it away. In fact, this response allows me to unpack the experiences of many people who want to see themselves as people who care about human equality. You could replace nearly any of your references to men with references to white feminists or references to Black Lives Matter, and the same set of feelings arising from the cognitive dissonance of wanting to see oneself as a good person will arise. Ugh. Yeah, you could replace nearly any of your references with men to white feminists. I love white feminists. It's just white feminists. Or Black Lives Matter. Jesus Christ. Black Lives Matter's a crock of shit. They deserve no respect. They're a hate group. And I don't care if you're a white feminist. If you're a feminist, I just don't give a shit. Feminism's stupid. You've lost. So continue to try and love your fellow humans, my friend, by loving yourself enough to confront the baggage of your identity and socialization. and then by understanding ours. No, you need to love yourself and to confront the baggage of your identity and your fucked up worldview of society, and then you might be able to understand the issues that these white guys are going through, because you are dehumanizing them, you are making them the enemy, you are causing problems between men and women, you are making more of a divide, like Black Lives Matter has created more of a racial divide. You can perpetuate this shit all you want, but it doesn't make it true. And yeah, I mean, maybe I missed something in this article. I'll put it in the description, but I got no evidence here for anything she's talking about. I got nothing. It's only the bias argument, those bias tests and stuff, and I've went through that. I mean, I'm not convinced by it that you're so fucking biased it's that big of a deal. I mean, I'm biased with what kind of food I like, you know? I mean, yeah, of course, but they really, really push it. And I don't see the science there, and I'm definitely not won over by what she writes here. What's her name? Let me go see what this chick's name is. Jessica Zio. I think she's the woman who created this site. I think she's Asian. So I think I made a bunch of black jokes. She might be Asian, but who cares? Oh, me feminist too. Very, very good feminist. Very good. Very good. It was a long ass video. Jesus. God, everyday feminist articles are so long. They just fucking. It's like, God, do you get paid by the goddamn word? And they just repeat the same. Like every article's the same too. It's just the same point they made in the article they wrote yesterday. I don't know why they even hire different people to write anything. Anyways, the patriarchy. Like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, I'd say go fuck yourselves, but God, I wasted a half hour on this, so fuck me.